I don't know about you guys, but it seems to me that as popular as both Chicago and UK drill music can be, all anyone wants to talk about these days are the drill beats emerging out of New York, more specifically the Bronx. That is where a trio of close friends that we know as K-Flock, B-Love, and Dougie B would spend their childhoods running the block before becoming three of the biggest rap stars in the city with hit tracks like Brotherly Love, T-Cardi, and Pop That. Recently, we have taken a close look at the come-ups of both K-Flock and B-Love, so now let's investigate the equally intriguing story of their friend Dougie B, the man who had to sit and watch from behind bars as his best friends made it without him. Find out how Dougie B's friends held it down for him after the jump on our newest episode of Before They Were Famous.
That trade. Trade Fields?
Dougie B was born Douglas Johnson
in the early 2000s in the New York City neighborhood known as the Bronx. Much like his friends K-Flock and B-Love, Dougie B came from such a difficult beginning that it's pretty much a miracle that the man survived to become the success story that he is today. Listen to a bar or two from any Dougie B track and you're bound to hear a reference to how dangerous it was growing up in the Bronx. He spent a lot of time on the block located at East 187th Street, known as Sev's Side or Sev Block, a section of town where losing a friend or two was sadly just a part of everyday life. On the more positive side of things, it was his time spent here listening to artists like Chief Keef and Kodak Black that music began to become a part of his life.
I've been listening to that side. Chief Keef, Gunna, Key, Kodak, okay.
Dre, I really listen. I don't mind, but like the lyrics is really, that shit really mean.
As a kid, Dougie was spared from having to spend his entire day in this notorious part of the Bronx by being sent off to attend elementary school in the nearby neighborhood of Yonkers, basically a 25-minute bus ride. By the time he was a teenager, however, Dougie would be back to spending most of his time in the Bronx, affiliating himself with local crews like the Mac Balla family. Despite his affiliations, it was most likely the strength of his close-knit friendships that helped him get through what must have been one of the most difficult times of his life. At the age of 15, his father passed away in front of him from an epileptic seizure. After this tragedy, it was K-Flock who stuck by his friend to help him get through what had happened. Dougie B would eventually return the favor by helping kick off K-Flock's musical journey, but it was B-Love who would begin dabbling with songwriting before anyone else. Once B-Love began writing and recording his own music, Dougie B joined in. When Dougie discovered how much fun the gig was, he convinced K-Flock to join as well.
We wasn't making drill music like.
Right, but back then drill was kind of around, but it was it wasn't really prominent.
Like, we was listening to heavy Chicago.
Like Chicago drill,
like,
Turbo, those type of guys. Yeah.
This when Brooklyn drill was fake popping, like they started coming out with it for me around that time. But we wasn't making drill music, like we was making regular music.
But as much fun as these boys were having making music, hustling on the streets kept gobbling up most of their time. Eventually, music more or less fell by the wayside again as everyday life began to take priority. Then in 2019, both K-Flock and Dougie B would find themselves locked up. How exactly both K-Flock and Dougie B wound up behind bars is unclear, but there are rumors online, so I figured I'd let you guys in on what the web told me because it's not like anybody on the internet has lied before, right? According to the ingenious folks over in Reddit land, Dougie B earned himself about a year in prison for stealing the chain off of another up-and-coming Bronx rapper, PNBJ.
No, I put up a fight for my chain. I put up a fight, and the I was with did not do shit. I was with didn't do shit. They watched me get beat up.
According to a man apparently in the know, Jay and K-Flock grew up together and were close friends. Meanwhile, Dougie was close to K, but not having grown up directly on the same block. He wasn't buddies with Jay. Long story short, Jay blew up as a rapper before anyone else, and then when he was back home having something of a party with all his buddies, Dougie showed up and made off with Jay's chain.
My flockers is taking your chain. He even said it, you dickhead. My flockers is taking your chain, you stupid.
Now, according to this same Redditor, that's how Dougie wound up behind bars for close to a year. Now, that sounds like an awful long time to be locked up for a petty theft such as that, but if Dougie had some priors, which, if we're being honest, he probably did, then the sentence could have been compounded. And that, my friends, is how Dougie B found himself behind bars at the same time as K-Flock, just as their friend B-Love began exploding in popularity.
That million views in less than like a
right before I come home, I get like for me, I got to do for me when I was in some program shit. They let me go on the YouTube shit. I
I'm like, I seen him too. I'm like, nah. It really, I come out though, yo. That's like everybody know me.
Not long after B-Love's career began to flourish, K-Flock got released, and once he emerged from prison, Flock immediately hit the studio alongside Love and began churning out songs like FTO. Now Dougie had two famous friends lighting things up on the outside, and lucky for him, they never forgot about their OG. Dougie B finally finished his prison sentence and was released in summer of 2020. Now that he was a free man and the groundwork for success had been paved by his friends, Dougie B took that sucker and started to run as fast as he could.
You got that new shit, right?
You sent that shit to me, right?
Yo, dog, send that him. He dropped that.
He'd released his first single, No More Free Dougie B, a couple months later, and I think you probably have a pretty good idea from the title what that track was about. It was basically a thank you letter to his friends for holding it down for so long without him. At that point, he was calling himself Dougs B, but he'd quickly switch over to Dougie B. One would think for the brand recognition that already came baked in. This trio of buddies then teamed up to drop the hit track Brotherly Love, which would go on to earn over 6 million views under half a year of release. Next, he'd appear on numerous tracks as a featured artist, like That's My Muddy, Geeked, and Pop That, all of which would amass over 1 million views over on YouTube. Then in 2021, he'd release his first mixtape, EOS 700 DOA, which features hit songs like Dealerships, EOS, and his most recent single, Turned, which is currently blowing up on YouTube with nearly 1.5 million views in just over a month's time. Now it looks like Dougie has recently signed a record deal, but as for who it's exactly with, well, that's a little less clear. It seems like most people's money is on him having joined the Victor Victor worldwide roster, which famously used to represent Pop Smoke.
Meanwhile, we were editing video. Dougie B was signed to Republic Records.
Finally, just so you know, there were also some online rumors circulating that Dougie caught a bullet in the leg this past summer, and some people were even worried that he was paralyzed. Honestly, I can't verify any of that for a fact, but I will say that it's probably cap since Dougie has been dancing on social media posts since then. As for the rest of his story and where his path might take him, well, that's for another time and another place. After all, this is before they were famous. My name is Clyde Smith, and if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in another video.